and Guajome are also filler roads and diversion roads. And so when they have the affairs and festivals and parades in downtown, every street's closed off, and Lado de Loma has cars parked both sides all the way up and down, and we can't get out. So I'm not sure that the city has considered the density problem and the traffic problem. So as the developers mentioned, it was originally in 2018 listed as property on 3.35 acres for 24 single-family houses, which are in keeping with the community of Lado de Loma, that loop that's up there on that hill. I think 181 more residents. I'm sorry, I didn't go to the May 7th meeting, so I'm here a little late talking about my complaints, but I think that's quite a high density, and you already have added multiple apartment buildings along the corridor of Santa Fe that have increased the density of the area, and you are now talking about doing the same thing at the new community church circle. I know it's out of line, it's not this topic, but that's another consideration of multiple apartment units that you're considering adding to our downtown, Old Down Vista area. I think the density is plenty at this point. I know that there's been a lot of footwork and groundwork from 2017, actually was the first project proposal, and here we are, 2021. But my experience with the city, and of course, it was totally different people than you are here today, is that the city has tended not to listen to the preferences of the residents about what they would like to see done or not see done, or where they see the congestion, or trying to keep their community residential in single-family housing, and yet the city in its wisdom has decided to add some features that have negated entire communities. And I'd hate to see Lado de Loma become one of those. It's already, by virtue of other city decisions, has really affected the traffic. As I said, on Lado de Loma and Guajome, I believe that the narrowness of those streets and the windingness does not allow for any improvements or widening to accommodate the traffic that will be going through that area if anyone has really driven around that whole Lado de Loma street.
Could you summarize your comments?
Yes. Oh, is there a red light? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I think the housing and the traffic density is one. I'd like to see maybe a better traffic study. I'd like to see the city honor the fact that it is a residential single-family community, if you want to say, or up there on that hill. And that's what makes it so desirable. And I think the height of those buildings will, even though you did talk to the neighbors and considered their view, I still think you're obstructing their view. And I do believe the city has enough density of new apartments in that particular area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carol Harren?
Sharon, yes, thank you.
Followed by Lisa Molk.
Good evening, thank you for your time. I'm here also to address the issue with the traffic and the increased density of the area. I live at 281 Lado de Loma, which everyone's concerned about the loop of Lado. I live on the portion that goes between Guajome and Vista Village. As it stands right now, you've already added an additional 100 units between the two units that are now on Santa Fe, as well as adding traffic with the traffic circles, that's increased. Our street has become a cut through. And if you put 180 units on that lot, you're looking at an additional, I'm thinking minimum 360 cars at 2 cars per unit. And you're already short 102 parking spaces if they're only going to put in 258. Those cars are going to have to go somewhere. They're going to wind up parking down on Santa Fe, blocking the whole purpose of Santa Fe, which is the merchants and the mercantile down there. You're going to wind up with homeowners, with renters parking down there. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. The other thing is the traffic increase between Vista Village and Lado or Guajome. At this particular time, it can take me up to 3 to 4 minutes to get out of my driveway because as these cars are coming up, these cars are coming down, and it's vice versa. You add another 258 cars to that on a daily basis because they're not going to go down Santa Fe to Civic Center and get to the freeway. They're going to come up, down Lotto, and then get on the freeway that way. So I appreciate the commission looking into the traffic congestion, and that's all I really wanted to say was bring that to your concern. At this point, I'm opposed to the project based on that.
Okay,
So thank you.
Lisa? Followed by Cliff Kaiser.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I want to thank the developer for meeting with the neighbors and trying to get their input on the property. I spoke also at the city council meeting, and the developer has been trying to incorporate those. My recommendation was to limit the number of stories to 3 stories at the time. Just to give you some history on the lot, and I think you are all already familiar with it, but long ago, 30 years ago, where many of the residents are still living, it was approved for 15 lots. And now then it got approved for 25 lots, and now 181 units. And so as you can imagine, the density has increased significantly. And the building will completely change the nature of the surrounding area and the nature of the community. So I recommend that if the building has to be built, that it be scaled back to 3 stories. We require a wrought iron fence. And also that the open space lot be recorded to remain open in perpetuity, and that the architectural design blend in with the community using soft tans, greens, wood trim, and not stark white or yellows or the lighter color. I think that's been discussed already, that the perspective has shown up lighter than what's intended. I want to thank the developer again for the open space that he's providing, but I am also concerned that it's going to be encroached upon once the building gets developed and that the existing mature trees won't stay. So if there's a way to maintain the existing trees or replace them and to scale down on the building, whether it's via parking and reducing the parking requirement, and I know that creates another issue. But if you provide all that parking, you're going to add that much traffic. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Mr. Kaiser, followed by Epi, Mr. Epi, or Mrs. Epi.
Greetings, Commission. Just a couple observations. I have no strong feelings because I haven't studied this well. I would encourage that the buildings be designed so that the noise from the train and the rail don't intrude on the residents that much. And actually, if I were a resident there, I'd like to be higher on the hill so that I could see the vista across the way, of course, being respectful for the residents that are already there. The people traveling down Santa Fe and those on the train, right now, as it appears, are going to look at a bunch of buildings. And hopefully they're designed very attractively. But if you move the buildings up the hill a bit to allow for that vista, they'd also have better landscape and a natural beauty for those other commuters that are traveling through Vista. Lada de Loma is a very pass-through road. I think you all know that. And I use that more than I probably should, going to Lowe's over there. And I also am familiar to a similar road over near Vista High School, Anza Road between Beaubier and Vista. I use that all the time because I live up near the high school. And I feel sorry for the people there because it was never designed to be a commuter road, and they have nice little homes there bothered by all this traffic. So somehow you need to deal with a lot of the Loma traffic. And, consider making the pool a public pool. Make some partnership with the city or whatever it takes to say, hey, as an incentive to all the people, residents in this area, there's this pool here that's very rarely used by the residents, as most apartment pools are, and make it open to those in the area. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Tapia Epi, if I have that right, followed by Austin Zito.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Planning Commission. The project at Kenshu, if we are modeling after the downtown on Santa Fe, that the presentation of the canopies and the trees that they've done with the canary palm should be extended into this project. For one, I am always interested in the canopies and the trees. In this particular, I would much rather see a lot more parking than a lot of green space. The green space is something that I would say, yes, let's go for that. And on this pool idea, I would say that if there was what is now known as a cocktail pool, would be a lot more interested if it was placed in a different position than when there isn't in the back. And as far as inviting the neighbors to come and use that pool, I certainly would not be in favor of that. I think something like that is just for the residents. Growth is always inevitable. Vista is something that I have said in the past, we should all be proud of being and living here. We don't have the problems that other cities have. It's beautiful. We're not in the afternoons chasing bugs away from us. We can be outside, doors and windows are open. We should be proud of the building that is going to be done by this company. But I also disagree and agree that it's a little bit too tight and too many condominiums, too many for this particular site. If it was scaled down, and the parking definitely is something that I would be looking for a lot more. In my simple arithmetic, it is 2 cars per space is not enough, especially now that we're thinking about 4 bedrooms. Normally, that would be 4 cars. And the street of Lotta de Loma is very curvy, very narrow, and I think that also needs to be addressed. The safety of the people that live in Lotta de Loma should be considered. They've been there forever. The other thing is the pathway or the pedestrian traffic should be, the pedestrian pathways should be to Paseo Santa Fe. The sawtooth effect that maybe somebody is suggesting going from this project all the way down Lotta de Loma to Lowe's and the store, I think none of us like a sawtooth effect in the city of Vista. I think the conditions that are there now are fine. There are definitely some safety concerns. But as I said, growth is inevitable and we should embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Zito?
Hi, thank you to the Commission for allowing me the chance to speak. My name is Austin Zito. Last year, my wife and I bought our dream home on 404 Lotta de Loma. It is, if you go to the next slide, actually, we're in the rendering there. We're the most acutely affected. We're right on the corner there, surrounded on 2 sides. We fell in love with the neighborhood, the quietness of the neighborhood, the magnificent views from our yard and our balcony overlooking the hills in downtown Vista. We purchased it knowing that it was eventually going to be developed and that it was zoned for residential. Our home, it's directly located next to it. While I do agree that there is a need for more housing in the city of Vista, and that an influx of residents in such close proximity to the downtown area would certainly benefit the city and the businesses of downtown, I do have concerns about the density of the project and the impacts it would have on the current and the future residents of Vista. The proposed buildings would completely obstruct the view from my house. They're Rather than looking at the beautiful landscape of the mountains and downtown, we would be looking at the backs of apartment buildings. You know, and as they're currently proposed, the buildings are designed to be either at or above my roof level, which is completely unacceptable to me. Aside from impacting our view, it also impacts the natural light and airflow through our home due to its size and orientation. And in addition, it would completely change the view of my fellow neighbors who frequently take their families and their dogs on walks down Lotto de Loma, and they stop to look down the Pheasant Hill field at the view, the vista. Furthermore, the light and the noise from such a large development would be seen and heard throughout the neighborhood, as well as significantly in my home. While I do understand the need for additional housing, and I do support a project for development on that site, I do have to lodge my concern with the size, the density, and the scope of the one being proposed. If the project does move forward, we request modification to the height of the building and believe that these modifications can be achieved. We love our community and our home and support bringing in more residents to enjoy and invigorate Vista Village further, but it must be done responsibly and without harm to the current residents and homeowners. We hope that you consider these facts and help us preserve our home and community. Thank you for your time.
Super, thank you. That is the last speaker slip that I have. Anyone else wishing to address the commission? All right, that concludes the public comment portion of this item. Commissioners will go on now to providing comments to the applicant. We normally do it with the site plan and grading, parking, architecture and floor plans, and landscaping. But I'd like to start off with the zone change and general plan amendment and see if there are any comments on those. Commissioner Grimm.
Yes, I do have comments in that area. First off, for the developer, I think all of us realize what a difficult property this is to develop. It's extremely difficult. One of the problems is there's no real, transition between the single family. I mean, there's some open space, but between the single family and the units being proposed at 40 dwelling units per acre, it's normally you would have some kind of a transition of lower density, and that's not going to exist. I wanted to talk a little bit further about Rick's question. I had the same question regarding the fact that when there's a specific plan on the property, that usually there's a quid pro quo for the city. What are we getting in return for that? And in this case, it's what are we getting in return for extra density and very, very dense building site. And, some of it you've talked about, making the site compatible with nature. There's some other obvious things. Obviously, that provides a heck of a lot of people that could walk downtown, use our businesses downtown, eat at our restaurants, which is a good thing. I do, and I don't want to get too much into architecture and stuff, but for me, the biggest problem is the density and the fact that the buildings are so long and so dense, and I would look for something a lot less dense and something that would provide more relief inside and out. In other words, similar to maybe what you did on your other project, something to that effect. And I know it's difficult to make that work from an economic standpoint, but anyway, those are my concerns on the site plan and the density.
On the general plan amendment and zone change, I have the same concerns. I think 40 dwelling units per acre on this piece of property adjacent to 10 and 15 dwelling units per acre on the general plan is an ask too much. We have policies in the general plan that talk about protecting single-family neighborhoods, and I don't think this addresses those policies. I would think something more in the range of 20 dwelling units per acre at the high end. That would be like 92 units. And I have other ideas about the site design. But for me, the request to add it to the downtown specific plan. When the downtown specific plan isn't built out, if everything was built out and there was still demand for more multifamily units, maybe, but I don't think we're there yet, and I would think something along the lines of our high-density designation of 20 dwelling units per acre might provide the transition that Commissioner Grimm was talking about. Okay, next item is the site design. Commissioners, any comments for the applicant on site design? Commissioner Looney.
For me, it was refreshing to see a building shape that lent itself to the topography of the piece of property. It's a steep lot. We've got a natural boundary with our railroad tracks and the bicycle trail. But the shape and the footprint, I think, is refreshing to see. It's different. We've seen so many projects come into Vista that are on, let's say, rectangular lots, and they generate a rectangular building. So for me, it's refreshing to see a curved building. It's very expensive, problematic to build and to design, but I think that's positive. And the circulation, I think, was handled well because we got, you've accomplished putting parking under the structure, the tuck under garages, where we don't have a lot of surface area. There's still some challenges for site design, but I think it's a good start.
Commissioner Aguilera.
I would agree with that. I like the curved nature of the building. That's very unique and adds something to the property. I especially like the buffer that's built in and the fact the footprint is much smaller. And so it's not affecting the neighbors as much. And I'm glad that you've taken the access off of Lotta de Loma. That's huge, because I know that that's been a problem in the past with this property. I'm wondering if there's a way to, and I don't know, I mean, this would have to be run through NCTD and PUC and all that, but is there a way that we can stop cars from coming out of the project and turning left to go over Guajome and force them to go down Mercantile or Santa Fe by adding a median or something of that nature? Now, of course, I don't know how you would work that so that people could come back in that way, but when we did it with the gas station on Vista Way.
We can look at it.
I think that would be very helpful to the neighbors up above this project and cut down on the traffic and force traffic to go where they're supposed to go. And then I didn't get to add this before, but I think we do have quite a few units here. I was looking at 135 units because that would get you down to 3 stories, and that would help the neighbors above. Still, I guess, a compromise of sorts. But I would like you to take a look at that and see if that works out for you, you know, financially and all that. I understand how this works, but you're asking us to help you and help us. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Savage.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the whole Kenshu design you guys have done, this looks gorgeous. I do have the same concern topographically about the top of the building. When I hear that it lines up with the roof of those residents, it does feel like it's, well, so I understand that on walking in Lotta de Loma, you might still have a view, but a lot of those residents might not. And I think for the future of those residents and for the future of those properties, I would encourage you guys to look at getting rid of just one of the floors on each of those spaces. And I don't know if you need viability. I know we're talking about density, but if you're moving, it's that. I know you guys have added a small building onto the side of the property there. Maybe exploring that. I think the elevation is going to be a really big key here. So I would encourage looking into that. And then I don't know exactly what our legalities are about partnering with you guys for this backspace, but I see the trees and I see the sitting spaces, and I think about places like in Oregon where you have these Kenshu buildings and you have public spaces, and I mean it's an amazing element that you can add to a community. And so if there's some way that we could allow the residents of Lauderdale Loma to access this, and I don't know what that would look like, John, on our side, or what our partnership would look like, but if that's something to explore in the future, I think that might be really beneficial.
Sure, we can look into it.
I don't want to put too much work out there, but yeah, I don't know the public pool part, but I do really like that hillside. So yeah, in terms of the layout, it does look gorgeous, and I think this is like an incredible place for your residents. So yeah, obviously you guys really know what you're doing with your experience, but it really shines here. But yeah, those would be my comments. So.
For myself, on the site design, there are several things that I like. I like the tuck under parking. I like that the retaining wall is put into the building. One of the problems I had with the previous single-family subdivisions were the amount of retaining walls that were necessary to create the pads for the homes. The hillside was full of retaining walls. This incorporates those walls into the project, and I like that. I like that there's a variety of units from studio to 4-bedroom, and that the access only comes off of Guahomie. But I think stack flats up to the same elevation as the other commissioners have said is too intense. I would encourage you to consider townhomes maybe. They did that on the Ryland downtown. The north side of that building has 2-story townhouses on the ground floor, and that might be a solution for that hillside development. That concludes my comments on site design. The next is architectural elevations. We've kind of covered that already. I don't have anyone else wishing to speak. My comments, I think I've covered them a little bit. I'd like a page in the plans that have all the floor plans. I'd like to see the furniture layout in the micro studios. I think the roofs are too flat. It's one solid roof going across. I'd like to see some variation in that. And maybe if you lose a story, that will help. Mechanical equipment is on the roof, and I need to see more information on how it's going to be screened. And we talked about the colors of the elevation, gray and beige, needs some work. And I like the cross sections that you provided tonight, better than the ones in the plans. They're more complete, showing the adjacent homes. And that concludes my comments on the architectural elevations and floor plans. Commissioner Savage, more additional comments?
Yeah, the floor plans will be absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming that you guys were planning on bringing those for that, but that'll be really helpful. But I was just wanted to mention. I know we switched to earth tones, and I wasn't sure if we had intended to go so light on the whole project. I know the renderings might not be representative, but having a little variation. Obviously, you've seen around Vista the variety of color that are used for the exteriors has really made all of those buildings pop, and so something to kind of add a little flair. I would encourage you guys to look into. Obviously, we still want earth tones. That seems to be what the community is asking for, but some darker elements might help add some variation. So
Or contrasting colors. All right, let's finish up with landscaping, and that'll, I think, conclude our discussion. Any comments on the landscaping? None? Commissioner Savage?
Sorry, I think I have a lot to say this week. But I do really, I just want to say that I really appreciate that you guys are bringing in fruit into Vista. My family's been here for generations, and I think of Vista, I think of farming, I think of strawberries, and so it's really encouraging to see you guys focus on that and bringing that into the element of what it means to live in Vista. So appreciate that.
Commissioner Aguilera?
I just want to say ditto. I really like the landscaping.
All right. Before we conclude, any comments from our student commissioners? Peter?
Yeah, at this point, I think you guys know that these sorts of projects really align with how I view how the city of Vista should develop. Like the walkability and bikeability of the site really stands out as a key benefit, and it's like you guys were saying with the integration of kind of that agricultural theme. I think that kind of environmental connection is definitely like a clear benefit, but it is too tall. I think lining up directly with the roof line of neighborhoods above does still cut off views. It's better than some other projects we've seen where it's like a 50-foot difference or something. But I think that difference can be balanced out so that the developer can have enough units to get a healthy profit and currently present residents can still maintain their views. But overall, I think if more projects in Vista are as committed to pedestrian and biker friendliness like this, I think we're in good shape.
Very good. Thank you.
I agree with Peter, and I also think that it is too tall. I really like how they included the fruit and stuff. That was really nice because I often see a lot of people picking fruit off the fruit trees off the street, and sometimes that makes neighbors like angry because that's their fruit trees. I love how the community is like they want the community to be involved with it. It's very nice because you don't really get that much anymore, and the 4 bedrooms, it's nice because there's not really many housing options in Vista anymore. So,
Very good. Thank you. One last comment on the landscaping. You have 3 and 4 bedrooms, and I really didn't see, except for the yard area, I really didn't see any facilities for children. So if you're going to have 3 and 4 bedrooms, we're probably going to have kids, and we need to plan for them, facilities for them. Commissioner Looney.
Just one last comment. I think you've got a great project, and I would encourage you to work with staff closely and make it work. Address the density, address the building heights, and address some of the traffic issues. I think they're not impossible to resolve, but I really think that there's a lot of potential in turning this concept into a workable, viable project for you.
Very good. John, I had one question for you. When they make their formal submittal, it's going to go through environmental review?
Yeah.
Okay, so there will be an environmental document?
Yeah, they'll have to do technical studies and environmental document prior to public hearing.
Okay, so for the neighborhood, there's going to be an environmental document. It's either going to be a mitigated neg deck or maybe a focused EIR, depending on the issues. But that document will have a lot of information, and you should get your hands on it and read it because it'll answer a lot of your questions. The traffic study will be there, so it'll show you how they plan to address those issues and noise, everything that is involved in the environmental review. So I would do that.
Mr. Chairman, just to address that issue, the timing of that is probably a ways out because if
Okay.
we file a formal application, it's probably like 6 months before we would have an environmental document.
Okay, yeah,
We will send written notice to all of the residents within 500 feet, as well as anyone who signs up for our planning notices of the availability of that document once it's prepared.
okay, very good. Good comments, John. All right, for the applicant, any questions about what you heard up here this evening? Nope, very good. Okay, then that concludes our discussion item for this evening, and we will move on to, I'm sorry? Yes, nothing was approved. We'll move on to reports and comments from commission members. Anyone have a report or a comment? All right, Mr. Conley, your report, please.
So I had told you that we were not going to have a meeting on June 7th, but unfortunately we do have to have a meeting on June 7th. I was informed on Tuesday last week. So I'll have one item. It should be a quick meeting, but I will need to have a quorum, so hopefully 4 of you can make it. We also have some training that we're going to try to schedule for the commission on Brown Act and some other like discretion, discussing, levels of discretion for different projects that Ms. Guy is going to help facilitate. We're probably going to try to schedule it that week of the 7th of June, and we'll be sure to get in touch with all of you individually. If we can't do it collectively, we'll try to set some individual meetings up. As far as council meetings, I don't think there's anything planning related that's on the next meeting on the 24th. Stuff that's coming up, we'll bring to the commission. So really, as far as council goes, nothing to report there. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Conley? Commissioner Garrettson?
Yes, Mr. Conley. What's the latest on the motel on Shadow Ridge? And all three, the motel, the storage unit, and Burlington Coat Factory.
So the motel submitted an application for a single room occupancy. It will require a zone change or a zoning amendment and a special use permit that will come before the Planning Commission for a formal recommendation. I imagine it's probably a couple months away from that, scheduling that hearing, so that'll be before you. The Burlington Coat Factory has submitted a general plan amendment request with a zone change to develop that property with residential with a small office component. That also will come to you for early design review once they submit their formal application, probably in the next couple months. And the other one was North County Square?
No, it was the storage unit next to the motel originally. It was a vacant village, and then they were going to turn it into a storage unit, but I understand something else has gone in there.
Shadow Ridge Drive, 760 Shadow Ridge. Yeah, there's a laundry, commercial laundry operation that's gone in there. So they fully occupied the facility, and there's no proposal for mini storage. And just so the commission is informed, I was told today, actually, that the Marriott Hotel is going to move forward. They did sell the property to a hotel developer who's preparing construction plans. So both the Hilton and the Marriott projects look like they're going to get built.
Very
You
good.
mean the one on Melrose?
The one on South Melrose and the one on Shadow Ridge Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Looney?
Two things that we looked at earlier. The corner of Eucalyptus and Civic Center. We looked at kind of a multi-level mixed use. Is that still in the works, or?
Yeah, we haven't heard back from them. We did the pre-app, and you took a look at it, an early design review, and they haven't submitted a formal application at this point, so we're just kind of waiting for them to come back.
Okay, it was, because that was kind of a fun project. Very creative on a tough lot. Again, another steep lot. And then I see where they've started McDonald's
Yes.
on Civic Center. So that's good.
I think that'll take a few months. They have to tear it down and rebuild it, so I'm going to guess it's 6 to 9 months to complete that project. I'm sure they're estimating sooner than that, but that's my gut.
John, would you share with the commissioners Del Taco? Because
Taco Bell. Is that what you're talking about, Taco Bell?
Taco Bell, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Taco Bell, as you noticed, has been a little bit slowed down. When they went to excavate the property and grade for the foundation of the building, they hit rock. It's apparently the hard blue granite that we see around Vista. So they had originally intended on putting a grease trap in a certain location. They had stormwater tanks that they were going to put underground. A number of their improvements were subterranean, but because of this granite situation now, they've bought everything above ground. So they were able to locate a spot to put the grease trap, but all of their stormwater basins are now above ground. It's changed their landscape plan a bit. We're working through it at the staff level, but that's the reason that it's taking them so long. They have a lot of heavy machinery out there, I'm sure you've seen, because of the material that they hit underground. I guess the slope behind it was a borrow pit area when they built Vista Way, and that was all the same rock, but they didn't know the extent of it when they designed their improvements, so that's what's taken so long.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we will stand adjourned until June 7th.
Thank you.
If you want us to show up on the 7th, you're going to have to double our pay. That's even better.
Yeah.
That'd be more than our pay.
Yeah. Wait.